website later. And so we'll get started. We're going to be today with Marie Brumfield from Children's Council. Hi, Marie, I'm glad to have you with us today. And she's so excited to be here. So we're looking forward to talking with you more. Marie's going to tell us a little bit about what she does at the Children's Council, and she's working with teenage parents and teenage pregnancies, and how she sees trauma in that role, and how she helps build resilience, and how she stays well. This is very interesting to me because I did not even know this program existed until my intern this semester was interviewing Marie. And so when she came back and told me about some of the things, I was like, now I have to talk to Marie. And so I felt like it really needed to come here so we can all learn more about this program. So welcome, Marie. We're happy to have you with us today.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here and definitely appreciate being able to share this program with everyone to help get the word out of some more services that we do have here in the High Country in Boone. So thanks.
Great, thank you. And so if you'll start by just telling us a little bit about the program and who it serves, and even possibly how you get referrals. We'll come back to that question if we forget to touch on that. But like I said, I didn't even really know it existed. And so I think people may be interested in knowing about referrals. So if you just start by telling us a little bit about the program.
Yeah, sure. So the adolescent parenting program is through a grant that the Children's Council has with the Teen Pregnancy Prevention Initiative. Through this grant, we serve pregnant and parenting teens between the ages of 13 and 19 years old. We provide them with support to reach their goals and help them provide a safe and healthy environment for their babies to grow and develop. Um, the program is completely voluntary and free. The three main objectives of our program are to increase the delay of a subsequent pregnancy, increase graduation from high school, whether that's with a high school diploma or a GED, as well as improve the child welfare and school readiness of their babies. Um, with our program, we offer monthly home visits, which now, of course, are virtual for the time being. And we also provide monthly group connections or group meetings. Through this program, we serve Watauga, Ashe, and Avery County. Um, and we've had the grant at the Children's Council for about 10 years, actually. Personally, I've been um, serving in this capacity for a little bit over a year. This past October was my 1 year anniversary with the Children's Council. So that was exciting. I enjoy working with the Children's Council, and we have so many programs and services for the community. And like I said before, like I'm really happy to be able to share this program information with everyone.
And so referrals, Marie, tell us, can anyone in the community refer? Where do you get your referrals from, and how would people make a referral?
Yes. So, yes, anyone could make a referral to us if they are connected to or know of a teen that could benefit from our supportive services. Um, Oftentimes, our referrals have come from school nurses or school social workers, um, the health department, many different departments within the health department. But I think the easiest way to get referrals to us is through our agency website. There's If you are on the homepage, scroll down a little bit on the sidebar, there's a link to agency referral form. And so that's a pretty straightforward form to fill out and connect us with the teen or with you and the teen.
I'm going to see if we've got a couple people from WCCI on that call. Maybe somebody can find us that link and throw it in the chat for us. So pretty easy referral process. You don't have
Yeah.
to necessarily be in a program or anything like that. You can even, if you know somebody in your community who is a teen or an adolescent person with pregnancy, you can refer them.
Right.
You had mentioned to me when we talked earlier about providing diapers and wipes and possibly formula, and that sometimes can help you build relationships with teens who may be more reluctant to
Hmm.
get involved with an agency person. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Sure. Yes, so we do provide and offer diapers and wipes on the monthly basis. And so, with being in our program, you can get 50 diapers and about like 2 packs of wipes a month. And like I said, as we shared with you before, sometimes, at least in the beginning of building the relationship or rapport with the teens, um, my main way of kind of getting in with them is saying, especially now doing virtual things, is like, hey, can I drop off some diapers and wipes? They're like, yes, I need size, whatever. And so at least I know that we have at least that touch or that connection if I'm able to drive out and drop off a bag of diapers and wipes at their door or their porch. And yeah, that's a good way to build that relationship if they know that I'm consistently doing that for them.
Right. I know that I had heard about the diaper drives that Children's Council does that I think during the pandemic has moved to Hunger Coalition. Is that right?
Yes. Yep.
And so some of them that I guess assume that's where you're getting the diapers that you're taking
Hmm.
to teens is from the diaper drive that y'all do.
That's right.
And
Yes.
so someone had put in the chat the link to the referral to your program. And then for people who may be interested in contributing in some way, we're going to be talking more about that later, but donating diapers is a way that they could be helpful.
For sure.
So that's some about the program. And if anybody has any questions, you're welcome to type those into the chat, or you can even unmute yourself and just jump in. We'll save some time at the end for questions too. Um, so moving into the trauma aspect, after you and I talked the last time, I said this to you before we got on, but we do a standard WCCI trauma and resilience presentation. And one part of one slide, as we're zooming through, is people from unresolved trauma have higher rates of teenage pregnancy. So when you and I were talking last time, and I asked you specifically, do you screen for trauma? Do you know the numbers in the people that you serve? After we got off, I was like, I want to know for myself. And so I asked my intern to look some stuff up, and I looked some stuff up. And what I saw was, and I'm going to try to post these articles in this chat if they're still on the copy and paste thing. I think they are. Is that adverse childhood experiences, traumatic events, as ACEs scores go up, so do the rates of teenage pregnancy. And that females with a history of child sexual abuse are 2 times more likely to experience a pregnancy in adolescence. Then this one kind of blew my mind. Boys who experience sexual abuse are 5 times more likely to report causing a pregnancy. So that was helpful to me to kind of get some more information about the rates of trauma and teenage pregnancy. So I wanted to share those too. Do you feel like that kind of got, when we were talking about this
Hmm.
before and I asked you about rates, you said to me, I think it'd be the exception. I'm paraphrasing. I feel like most of our clients come from some form of trauma. Can you talk about that?
Sure. Yes. So from I guess my experience in the past year or so, I've definitely noticed that several of our teens feel some type of abandonment in some way, shape, or form. Um, and they're often yearning for connection prior to pregnancy, um, which could be like that cycle starting. Um, and I could definitely agree with those statistics that you just shared. With the over this past fiscal year, we've served 18 teens. And I'd say for a lot of those female parents, or I won't say a lot. So for several of the female parents, there's been some history of sexual abuse there. So I would, yeah, definitely agree and see that trauma showing up for sure.
Well, we might get into this more a little bit later, but you and I both said that one thing, we don't want to just give a bunch of bleak statistics. We also want to talk about how the community can be more involved in either the prevention of teenage pregnancy or support of those people dealing with that. And you just said craving a connection. One of the things I saw in my reading was that they have found in studies that positive connections are a protective factor, that they decrease either the likelihood of a teenage pregnancy, or you had mentioned this earlier, and that is trying to reduce the likelihood of a second teenage pregnancy.
Right.
And that positive connections are really crucial and critical, which we talk about in all forms of trauma and promotion of healthier outcomes, is that connections really help. So we'll get more into that when we're talking about, what we can do to help support this group. So someone said, before the pandemic, what programs are in the schools for pregnancy prevention, and is that happening at all? And so, Marie, you may know more than I do about this, but I know we've done some classes with things like healthy relationships. We've had children come, or people come in from Children's Advocacy Center to do some of those classes. We also do some things about just say no, about, you know, those tend to be for younger kids, about when is it okay to touch what parts of our body. And so I'm sure it's different in different areas about what programs schools use to address that. And I meant to talk to the school counselor before we did this about if there's something specifically targeted towards this. That's what I know. Do you know what programs they may do in schools, Marie, about preventing teenage pregnancy?
I don't. That's something that we talked about earlier the other week. And I was sharing that when I went to try to look that up earlier on in this position, that I couldn't really find or figure out what the curriculum is that the school is using, or how they are educating um, to prevent teen pregnancies.
One thing I did do, I called the school social worker at the high school. She said y'all talk a lot,
Yeah.
and that she had the good news of that they currently only have one student at the high school who's pregnant, and that those rates have been really, really low for the past 8 or 9 years. So low that they used to do a support group for teen parents, and they probably haven't done that in 5 years or so. So she said people still meet to talk about it and to look at supporting the people who are, that y'all are aware of, but that the high school numbers have been really, really low.
Yes, in all three counties, Watauga, Ashe, and Avery, the numbers are low. When I last looked, I guess it was maybe earlier last year, maybe even in late 2019. The numbers are definitely like in the single digits for all three counties. So for our area, the numbers are low.
And I asked her, I said, I said, I'm not trying to like drum up numbers, but wondered how many of those, teen parents that we have maybe had left school without a diploma, and that pregnancy happening after. And she pointed out that part of our teen pregnancy rates even include college students who are 18 and 19. So just a reminder that that number goes all the way up till 19, and it could include some older teens as well. Not that they don't need any less support, but
Right.
So it does include people who may be in college and needing resources in the community. And as far as the pandemic go and services, because one of her questions was, has that changed? Obviously, lots about school has changed during the pandemic. School currently is essential personnel, and so we don't have a lot of people coming in and doing presentations or things like that, and presentations that we are doing are remote or virtual. Um, and I know you were mentioning that the pandemic had changed some and that support groups were not necessarily meeting in person, and home visits, you may not be actually going in, you may be meeting on the porch or just dropping stuff off. So the pandemic
Mhm.
has changed how you do things as well.
Yes, I mean, with the Children's Council, we've been able to pivot really well. And so that's been something that we're really proud of. But specifically with the teen parenting program, everything, went virtual. So the monthly home visits that I have with them are either through like Zoom or Facebook Messenger video chat. And then there are a couple that still just prefer to be like talk on the phone, which is okay too. Like I meet them where they're at. um, and of course, there's a good bit of like messaging through Facebook Messenger or text, just to stay in contact. And as we mentioned before, since I'm not seeing them in their home, which is when I would usually bring the diapers and things like that, so I'll do a monthly delivery of the diapers to check. I'll check in through by phone to see what they may need and ask if I can drop off those things at their door or their porch. Um, and so we're still being able to get those things out. So I think a lot of us with our professions and just life in the pandemic in general, we've realized that it's still possible to do and reach people and do the things that we need to do. It just looks a little different, but we've definitely been able to still connect with them.
Yeah, it's a gift to have so many different ways of, you named 3 or 4 there, of still staying connected to people. Two things that you had mentioned that were interesting to me. One was that once a teen is involved with you, you serve them on past their teen years.
Yes, so we can serve them up to their 20th birthday. Um, and for some of our teens we've had a few of them turn 20 throughout this past year of the pandemic. And so for some of them, we've, held on to them for a little bit longer, it being a difficult time, and just wanting to still be there to provide extra support. Um, and they can also roll over from our program. We have a newer program at the Children's Council, Family Navigator program. And so now that's kind of a way for them to continue receiving services after 20 if they're
Mm.
interested. Yeah.
So someone had asked how long you follow the mothers after birth. So if you have a 14 or a 15-year-old who follow or who have a baby, and then you can continue to work with them until their 20th birthday. So it could be several years that you get to be
Right.
involved with them.
Yeah. Um, for our current curriculum, I think it's for a lot of the focus is on the baby or the child. And so that curriculum goes up until the baby is 3. Um, so I guess technically after birth, um, 3 years, depending on the parent's age.
The other thing I wanted to point out, I asked you about teen dads. I
Hmm.
think when you hear about teen pregnancies, you're automatically, I was at least, thinking about teen moms. And so I asked if you um, worked with teen dads, and if how many of those you had, and if that was, you got to work with them as commonly as you do the moms. And so can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. We do work with teen dads. It's not as common, but that is, we also provide support to them. Right now, I have one teen dad on my caseload, um, and he's actually one of the examples or that I wanted to talk about when it comes to, um, I guess, just working on parenting skills and things like that. Um, he shared with me early on when we first started meeting that, he felt like he didn't have a dad, didn't have that example in his life. And in return, he was like, I don't think I know how to be a dad. And that's all in all like a common concern for any new parent. But when you're a teen looking at parenting, it's a bit heavier. Um, and so that's, one of the many things I think that we work toward within our program to build confidence and skills for them to um, move past those um, concerns or thoughts.
Let's come back to dads.
Yeah.
Somebody had said we actually have one of our school nurses on this call, and she may be able to unmute and talk to us a little bit about what the nurses do in regards to teenage pregnancy prevention or health education. And also that there's a class at the high school called Healthful Living, which does some preventative kinds of education as well. So thanks for those tips. So back to dads. I know somebody that belongs to WCCI, Randy Fedro, who works for App Health Department. He and a couple other people had started a father support group a few months ago, back in the winter, maybe. And so I remember when we were pregnant with our first child, and my husband, who is from the mountains and grew up in kind of a traditional mountain culture, guys are tough and don't show emotion, and um, was so worried about being a good dad. And we went to parenting classes together, and he loved those so much and really felt left out of the process of all the baby showers and all the mom support. And when the health department at the time was doing home visits with our second child, they came when he was at work. It's so sad that he got left out of that. And so just being really aware of how the teen dads may have some of the same anxieties as mom, and then maybe have some that are unique to their gender as well. And so just really appreciating the fact that they're included and that we're trying to be aware of those things and provide them support too.
Yeah.
So thinking about trauma, and you mentioned good parenting. I had asked you earlier, so are you involved in a lot of cases where you end up having to make DSS reports? And your answer kind of surprised me. So I'll let you tell us more about that.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you asked me that, my answer is, in my time this year and some months, that has not been a concern, and I haven't had to make any type of DSS reports in that way. These parents that I currently work with have, I mean, they're amazing. They balance and manage a lot. And just, talking with them as we build a relationship and seeing, like, just once their baby is here and, you know, in in hand, um, the love that they share and the priority that they give to their baby um, is like it's outstanding. I'm like, in some ways, man, amazed that even when I had my kids, I feel like I didn't have the patience that a lot of the teens have. So yeah, they work really hard, and it shows in everything that they do, really. So.
And that was a surprise to me that you don't see situations where you have concerns, and it really gave me a lot of hope for, if we're talking about reducing childhood trauma from generation to generation,
Mhm.
that just gave me a lot of hope to know that teen parents are trying really hard, and sometimes parenting in spite of the trauma
Right.
that they may have been through. We've talked on some of these calls about how difficult it is to parent when you have had your own trauma that you're still managing, and feel like you're parenting through trauma sometimes. And so I just found that to be really encouraging. So thinking about how you see trauma, we've talked a little bit about it may even, one of the first manifestations is the pregnancy, possibly that they're craving a connection that they may not have had. I imagine that poverty may be something that tends to be a common theme with the people that you work with. Any other types of trauma that you found to be more common than others that you see?
I think No, I mean, I feel like we hit on the key ones. I mean, poverty is definitely a big one. I would say um, every team that I work with um, needs assistance, has needed, assistance in some way financially, and are receiving um, SNAP benefits and things like that to, help combat poverty. But um, yeah, I think those are the main ones that we've already kind of shared and touched on.
We've been talking more in our community about screening for trauma or adverse childhood experiences, ACEs, and I'd asked if that was something you did, because as far as I know, Daymark is the only place that routinely, regularly screens at intake for trauma. And you said that was not necessarily something that y'all screen for, but because you're in their homes and talking with them on a regular basis over an extended amount of time, that you tend to learn the history from knowing their stories and having them share their experiences with you. So you tend to find out over the and due to
Right.
the relationship rather than an
Yeah.
intake.
Yep.
And so thinking about moving into how can the people in this call be more supportive or involved, um, what ways we can be more supportive of a community. You and I were kind of thinking about once they get to you, it's the event has already happened. They are currently needing the support, and we really kind of agreed that prevention really is a good way for the community to be involved. And we go back to a positive, consistent, caring adult is the number one factor to offset trauma. And that's what I read when I was reading specifically about teenage pregnancy, is that positive connections help offset some of those riskier behaviors. And so would you agree that you think that's a good, way for us to be involved is in the creating of positive relationships prior to
Right.
someone becoming a teen parent?
Definitely. As when I shared earlier, the teens typically, from what I've noticed, have had some sense of feeling abandoned in some way. I think that really, um, having some caring adult consistently, you know, will be a huge help with preventing um, this kind of obstacle, maybe, in their life. So, yeah, I mean, and then talking about it once they are in our program, um, connection is like one of the biggest resources for resilience that we build upon. Um, Being able to build that individual relationship with them while they're in our program um, is key to be able to move forward and look at the goals that they have for themselves and help them work towards those, or meet them where they are and then actually letting us know, like, hey, um, my husband or I or my boyfriend or whoever it is, we haven't been able to work in months and our electric bill balance is this much. Can you help me? So many different things, but it starts with having that connection and that relationship to where they feel comfortable to even share that with me or someone else, um, to be able to help them meet their needs and work towards their goals. So, um, yeah, I think all around, as you said, connection is key.
And so y'all have access to funds then to help pay bills, which another thing our presentation talks about is meeting the needs of families without putting them into a box. And so we have families that come into different agencies and you have to meet this income criteria to get this benefit, and you have to have this diagnosis to get this program. And I really love when agencies are able to obtain funding and be creative, because when you're talking about reducing stress for parents,
Hmm.
which improves a healthy relationship for a child. If their electric's going to be cut off, then that's an incredibly stressful environment. And so just being aware that when we can be flexible with programs and funds and supports, that it alleviates a great deal of stress for people, which is what you're saying. So I didn't realize that y'all were able to pay bills for people sometimes, which has to be a huge stress reliever.
Yes. Yeah, so we have like emergency funds that we can help with that. And then if for some reason we aren't able to help or pay the full amount that they're needing, um, we work to connect them with other resources in the community as well.
So one comment in the chat was, glad teen pregnancy is so low. Any idea if there was something happening to encourage that? The other part of the question I'm thinking of when I'm looking at that is, did we do something as a community that you feel like maybe addressed that and brought those rates down? Or any idea how come those rates are so low? And if so, can we keep doing what we're doing to help make that happen?
That's a good question. Um, I mean, I would say, um, just like through attending these conversations on Wednesdays, I think our community has a lot of support to offer, and people within our community have kind of worked to fill the gaps of things that are missing. So, I mean, I'd like to think and believe that the work that all these professionals are doing and within the community has definitely related to the
Mm.
lower numbers. Um,
One thing that I will say probably does not help is that there is nothing for kids in this county to do. I have
yeah,
a 17-year-old, and it's a daily conversation in our house. Like, the one thing they used to have to do was go to the movies, and the movies have been shut down for a year. And so I hear teens talking about, how the lack of having something to do really increases their risk for behaviors that may not be the most healthy ones. So if you're out there listening and have some power in creating activities for teens, I really feel like that puts our teens particularly at risk in this area because there's just not much for them to do here. Maybe the new rec center will help with that some. I'm looking forward to being able to go to that.
yes.
Um, and then we had someone else say, hold on, I'm trying to figure out how to get down there to it. She was a past teen mom in Watauga County and that she's glad to have this service. I don't know if it existed when I was a teen mom, but I remember feeling totally dropped off, like a huge plate of needed knowledge and responsibility was all on my shoulders that I just wasn't capable of. Oh, I did the best I could at the time, but it was a very lonely experience. Thank you for your
Yeah,
service, Marie.
thanks for sharing that. That's, a real feeling. Um, and yeah, I'm thankful that we are able to provide this program. And I think as I think more, I guess, another part of the program that I believe is really beneficial for teens in this part of their journey is our monthly group meetings or group connections, and to provide a space, an opportunity for them to learn with other teens who are parenting or pregnant, um, and just hoping, that that connection is able to build outside of our program or outside of those monthly group meetings so that they also have someone to support them, that is kind of, in the same boat or in the same shoes, and they see each other, you know, kind of moving forward or progressing. Um, and yeah, I think a key example of that is from one of our virtual group meetings that we had earlier on in the pandemic, when I was first kind of going virtual with them. I had two teen moms join me, and one was in Watauga, one was in Ash. They hadn't met prior to that virtual group meeting. And then afterwards, the Watauga mom like messaged me and she was like, "Hey, I really enjoyed meeting that parent. Can you ask her if she's okay with you sharing her number with me?" I was like, yes, like that's exactly, that's what we want. That's what, that was a win. That was great. And so, I was able to exchange numbers with the permission of the other mom. And so just knowing that those type of things do foster um, the connection and building those friendships or relationships outside of our program is huge.
Yeah, so just keep enforcing positive connections and caring relationships. I was watching something last night and the woman was talking, she's in her 30s, but she was talking about remembering as clearly as it was yesterday being 15 and pregnant and how embarrassed and ashamed she was to walk down the streets of her neighborhood and that she really felt like she had no worth and that she didn't deserve to even be out of her house. And it really touched me to think, that people can feel so alone and
Mhm.
isolated, and that we really have the power to alleviate some of that just by reaching out
Right,
and maintaining those warm relationships with them that they feel safe and supported. And so that's something that we all have capacity for.
yeah.
So positive connections. I think anytime you reduce levels of trauma for people, it makes them less likely to engage in risky behaviors. And so, part of what we talk about at WCCI, but even within our own families, is how to reduce those trauma experiences from generation to generation. So, as we continue to help our community become more trauma informed, hopefully, some of that will be happen naturally as well. And then, of course, when you're talking about support, donating diapers, donating funds to Children's Council so people's bills can help, when
Mhm.
if something needs to be covered, they can be covered. Which makes me think about jobs. We were talking about, you said, I don't know how a teenager manages to go to school, work, be a parent. Um, and I can't imagine trying to do high school and work and be a
Right.
parent. And so, do y'all help with like, I'm just thinking about jobs and job opportunities and the places that exist for those and needing to have work clothes and all of that stuff. Is that something that y'all are able to help with? You refer out for that?
I think it's a combination. We're definitely able to help on our end because we get donations, and staff members are always willing to um, look around or, share things and resources that they have as well. And we definitely also work to connect them with um, maybe even the is it the Employment Security Commission?
NC Works now. I
Yes. I'm
talked to
like,
them
what is
a
it
couple
called
of
now?
weeks ago and I didn't know their name had changed, but they're NC Works now and they do work with teens.
Yes, so connecting them with things like that as well.
So someone put in the chat, our health department has for a long time a good reputation for non-judgmental work, providing contraception information, free, hold on, I lost my spot. Sorry, free condoms available to pick up and STI testing and counseling. Whether or not they hear about this resource in school, many kids will hear about them from other kids or a parent. Yep. There are also some of the more mainstream churches that offer relationships and sexuality education programs for middle schoolers that use good evidence based curriculum where kids can think through safe and responsible decisions. Kids who go through these programs often will share information that's actually accurate and helpful with their peers. So, just some more information on those kind of prevention programs. Then, someone wanted to know where to donate diapers.
Um, yeah, so just through the Children's Council, on the website, there should be more information about the diaper bank. And so that's where they're donated to specifically. Matt Powell is our staff member that leads that up. And so I can always share his information as well. His email will be good.
Oh, that'd be great if you don't mind to put that in
Yeah.
there. Then somebody else mentioned OWL at the High Country UCC Lifespan Sexuality Education for Adolescents is a good resource for folks as a local resource. And then someone said that she heard recently that Children's Council distributes about 6,000 diapers a month. That's incredible. I remember when I had small children, and we have resources at our house, diapers and formula. I was terrified for the entire time they were in both of those things. Like, what happens if you can't buy these things? Like, they were so
Yeah.
critical to sustaining of life. And so that's really exciting that y'all are able to donate so many of those to people in need. So you're putting Matt's email, you said. I think they maybe can also be dropped off at the Hunger Coalition as well, probably.
Yes.
I'll give you a second to put that email in there while we're seeing if anybody else has any more questions or comments for the chat. I know it's really hard to think and type at the same time. I have several people that help me because I cannot do both. So trauma prevention support. One thing we haven't mentioned yet is that you worked in a residential placement for a really long time.
Hmm.
And I asked you if you found these two experiences to be very different. And because I feel like taking care of ourselves when we're in a service profession can be really difficult to do. And so, in either of those settings, can you talk to us a little bit about the things that you do to try to stay well yourself?
Yes. So, I mean, in my current position, I um, find that I have, I guess, more time to take care of myself, which is awesome. um, I think in this season, I shared with you in this season right now, my main, I guess, hurdle or internal conflict is being distracted by intrusive thoughts. Just I think in the time of working at home, kids at home, and all the other things, um, I'm in my head a lot more, and those thoughts of um, not being enough or not doing enough um, can definitely like weigh on you. So I'm my way of taking care of myself right now is to just have those positive thoughts reinforced, and telling myself the true things rather than believing those other things. Um, and also, um, quality time with my family is huge. That's a big way that I feel, I guess, replenished or restored.
When we talked about this before and you were talking about your state of mind, it really made very clear to me that as we've been talking, having these conversations on these Wednesdays, I went into this at the start of this thinking that this wellness list was going to be things that we do, that we check off, like taking a walk and getting plenty of sleep and nutrition, but
Right.
repeatedly have been reminded that it is a frame of mind and a perspective. And so, to be aware of the thoughts that we're letting ourselves have and trying to channel those to be a more positive thing. You talked about the messages that your brain tries to give you about
Hmm.
not doing a good job or not doing enough or needing to do more, needing to do it better. And how really that's one of the first steps in taking care of ourselves is being aware of those thoughts and trying to channel them in a way that lets us take care of ourselves.
Right.
And so finding the worth and the value in yourself and being sure to set really good healthy boundaries. So that's an important perspective to remember. Let's see, what have I not asked you about that we wanted to mention? You mentioned a dad that you wanted to talk more about. So I don't know if we've covered that yet or if you wanted to go back to that. Maybe just some personal examples of family or teens that you've gotten involved with and maybe how y'all's involvement made a difference for them.
Um, yeah, so I think um, for that teen dad, I think I pretty much covered his the thought that I had for him, but I think kind of going back to how proud I am of them. Um, Specifically, I mean, I can find an example for all of them, but specifically, there's one teen mom. We started working with her. She was in her senior year of high school and she was pregnant. And our first meeting with her, she wasn't even sure like if she was going to graduate. Um, and I was able to work with her for a year before she turned 20, and I feel like she was ready to graduate from the program. But within that year, there was so much growth, and just I think the presence of consistent support um, really, I guess, made it more possible for her to like meet the goals that she had for herself. So she got her high school diploma, she graduated high school, um, she um, applied for HUD housing, got that, was able to find a home for her and her baby to move out of her parents' home, which wasn't the best, situation. She was able to move out and get her own place. She bought her own car. She started a job at a childcare center that she ended up really like loving and raving about it almost every time I talked to her. She's like, I just love it so much. I think that's, I think I want to go to school for that. Um, and it's just amazing within as little of a year, when the beginning, when she, wasn't even sure or confident that she was going to graduate, but she did that and beyond. Um, and so those are, that's what we work for in this program, to reassure them that yes, there's a bump in your journey right now, but you can still, reach those goals that you had before. Um, may take a little bit more effort or, a roundabout way of doing it, but you can still do those things. So um, I think that that's a great story just to show what the main thing is, the main goal of the program.
We've talked in previous sessions about another theme that we kind of keep coming back to is believing in people when they don't believe in themselves. And that sounds
Yeah.
like a lot of what you do. Someone had wrote in the chat and said, Marie worked with our teen foster daughter who was separated from her baby voluntarily through foster care for a short time last year. And even for the short time she was involved in the program, I believe having encouragement from Marie and her constant communication really helped her during that tough time trying to have a relationship with her baby. Thank you, Marie. And also, we love the diaper program. We are able to use that to help us cut the cost of diapers and pull-ups for a toddler foster daughter. So some real life testimony there about how valuable the programs are there for people in our community. Um, so wellness, family, boundaries, self-talk. Anything else that you'd like to, I like that you just spent some time framing strengths and you're a social worker. So that's part of your training. You do a good job with that, just helping us remember that even um, when we're having a hard time, that there's still hope and strength for all of us.
Yeah.
And another thing we come back to is that our past does not have to be our identity or our destiny, that we get to choose who we are and what we become. Any other thoughts? I'm going to copy all the chat comments for you and I'll email them to you when this is over with. But any other thoughts or things that I haven't thought to ask you that you would like to share?
Um, I think we touched on this a little bit, but talking about how we build resiliency in the teens, which we actually talked about that more than a little bit. Um, but we talked about connection for sure and the group connections. But also, addition to that, I guess, you touched a little bit on the protective factors. So we build on those through parenting skills education, and using the parents as teachers curriculum, um, which it's new for us. We started that in October, this past October, but I've really enjoyed learning that curriculum more and more and sharing it with our program participants, it focuses on the child's development, um, and the importance of the parent-child interactions. So just, using the the day-to-day activities and things that they do with their babies that they don't even realize, how influential those things are when you're talking with your baby, when you're reading with your baby, when you're holding your baby when it cries. And I think I've been able to just show them that and reassure them that what they're doing is good. They're taking care of their baby, and beyond just the fact that their baby's not crying or the baby has a full belly, they're also helping the baby's brain develop. They're helping motor skills, and the list goes on of just how important those day-to-day things are that they're doing with their baby. And just I think it's nice to point that out to them so that they see, like, oh yeah, like, I'm a good parent, and they are. So um, that's the one other thing that I thought about sharing.
As far as building resilience, that's good. I know that for a lot of us, parenting is one of the hardest and scariest things we've ever done, and that's for adults with a lot of
Hmm.
resources. And so when we're talking about ways that we can all be involved is through encouragement and support. And I like that you're doing that well over there when you read to your child, those kinds of things. Um, but even, I'm thinking about in like the waiting room at the doctor's office, which there's not as many of us there at the same time anymore. But just even smiling, as ways of encouragement when we see a young mom interacting with her child. I know I always felt like as a mom that they were their worst when I was in public and that everybody was watching me be a terrible mom. So trying to help support what they're doing and encourage them that they're doing a good job. Another comment in the chat regarding prevention. I'd agree that our health department does a wonderful job in all of these ways. Um, hold on. I'm so grateful for them and for you and your program, Marie. And then a question of how important is learning to assume responsibility to building resiliency? Wow, that is a very interesting question.
That is.
I almost want to write that down and let myself think about it because I like that question so much. So we'll see if you have any answer to that, Marie, while I write this question down. But how important is learning to assume self-responsibility to building resiliency? Which I know that I have a 17-year-old and nothing is ever her fault. Like, I don't know how that cup got there, and I don't know why my shoes are there, and I don't know why that light's not turned off. So as soon as I read that, I was like, that's such a critical part of teenage years to me, to
Yeah.
accept responsibility for your own behavior. And so do y'all do any of that, either accepting responsibility or thinking about consequences when you're doing parenting skills or support groups?
Yeah, I mean, I believe we do in most likely like a roundabout way rather than specifically pinpointing those things. Um, but I think, um, man,
It's
there's
a
a
good
lot of
question.
thoughts.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I had the same reaction. It just immediately started my brain working in a bunch of different ways. And because when you're talking about the roundabout way, I mean, just even improving parenting,
Hmm.
you're going from not being responsible for anything, because most of these teens probably don't live on their own, to suddenly being responsible for a life.
Yeah.
So I imagine that there is, in a roundabout way, a lot of support of taking on responsibility, and that definitely would increase your ability to manage difficult situations.
Yeah, I think we do. I shared this when we talked the other week. We do have a class that we teach. It's be proud, be responsible, be protective. Um, and that's kind of like a sexual health class, um, in the perspective of being a teen parent, and teaching, the tactics and ways to make those healthy decisions for themselves and to be mindful of what's best for them and their baby. So I think that's one thing that we definitely do that I think will, like, more specifically correlate to that question. Um, but as you said, I think having the responsibility of a child of your own and then learning how to take care of that child builds builds confidence, for sure, when they're reassured and supported through that, um,
Make
which I think will also help with making decisions.
better decisions in the future. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're about out of time. I'm going to ask you if you have anything that you want to say to Marie, you're welcome to put it in the chat, and I'm going to copy it off for her and send it to her by email. Marie, thank you so much. I've learned so much from you these past couple weeks for spending time with us today and for what you're doing in our community. And so I hope to, I don't think that person knows you there that put all
Not at all.
that compliment in caps and exclamation points. But thanks for spending time with us and for all that you do. I hope you have a good rest of the day, and I will send you all these chat comments to your email so you have them to look back over. I know it's hard to read as you're talking, so thanks very much.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate you being with us and look forward to seeing you soon. And everybody, I'll see you next week. I intentionally looked up who we were having so I could mention it, and I always forget by the end of the hour. I believe it's Kelly Bass from Oasis talking about bystander empowerment. So hope everybody has a good rest of the day and a good week and that you find joy in your day. Thanks for being with us. Take good care.